I greet you with Jesus' joy, for it is in him that I live, breathe, move, and have my very being. I am very glad that everyone has decided to join Unboxed on Purpose today, a podcast created for Favored by the Father Ministries. We share stories, we share our lives with each other, and I want to tell you, because I forgot to tell you my name, I am Barbara Arlene Fields Brehon, your host. Favored by the Father Ministries invites guests to talk about times when they stepped outside of their comfort zones to pursue their purpose. Perhaps they were in dark places in life, or maybe they made simple pivots toward their authentic destiny. As long as they step outside of a box and want to share it with us, they make the ideal guest. So if you're interested, there'll be information at the end of the show where you can let us know that you want to be a special guest. Today, sharing with us is pastor and author Rebecca Collison. She is from Delaware, and she's going to discuss with us grounded identity. She is a former newspaper reporter and special educator. I want to make sure I have added her to the screen. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Dr. Brehon. It is so good to be with you this morning.
God bless. I could not see my little studio screen, so I wanted to be sure I could hear your voice. Reverend Dr. Rebecca Collison currently serves as the senior pastor at Mariners Bethel Global Methodist Church in Ocean View, Delaware. She and her husband, Glenn, have served at churches in Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia, and they enjoy the company of their blended family, including their 6 children and increasing number of grandchildren. Hi again, Rebecca, and thank you so much for being here.
It is my privilege and pleasure. Um, I was so intrigued. I had heard about your podcast, and when I watched it and listened to the stories on there, and I was able to get an opportunity to talk to you, it was just a wonderful conversation. And so it is such a blessing to be here today.
Indeed, it is a blessing to meet you and to meet you and to be in this sacred space with you today. So I want you to go ahead and tell our audience how we actually did meet.
Well, we kind of were introduced through a business colleague, and we were able to have conversation together and share our common denominator in that we were both from Virginia. We both had spent time in ministry in Virginia. I was only there for about a year, but kind of figuring out the locations of where each of our ministries were. And after that conversation, being invited to be a part of this podcast.
Absolutely. You are indeed an author, and we share in common also Quippy Quill, where Robert Williams and it was another lady that told you
Kim
about the
Brown.
podcast, Kim Brown. And so we want to give them recognition for making the
Absolutely.
connections. God bless you for being a part of that, and we'll share your books and all of that throughout the show. And so now we're going to just jump on in there and allow the audience a chance to get to know you a little bit better. I like to start with like the beginnings of life for you. When you were in your younger days, teen years, or even as a child, what seemed to be your passions in life that helped you to be propelled into who you have become?
I always wanted to make a difference in whatever I did. I was active in Girl Scouts. I was active in church and in the youth group. I just wanted to help people in any way I could. Sometimes it was through serving meals. Other times it was by helping folks that were in need of renovations in the home. We do that through youth group. But sometimes it was also by encouraging people because I loved to sing and write songs. And that was part of who I am as well. So any way I could make a difference to make somebody's life a little bit better, I tried to do that. And that was kind of led me in my early years.
So even as a child, you were a helper?
Yes. I was the it was my brother. I have an older brother. He's 2 years older than I am, and it was me. I was the baby, if you will. And but I just always wanted to help, beyond grandparents, neighbors, whoever was nearby in any way that I could.
So you've said that you've done ministry in Virginia and Delaware and other places. Where did you actually grow up?
Southern Delaware, Sussex County, Delaware.
Sussex County. Ah,
Hmm.
so that may resonate with some of our audience that may be located or from that area. And so, give us your 10-second identity, being the helper that you are, uh, in terms of your most joyful moment. Who is it that you are, your identity, in terms of helping us to know what you consider a joyful moment?
Okay, so as far as my identity,
All of it, whichever way the Holy Spirit tells you to
okay,
go, just go for it.
um, okay. So if I start with my most joyful moment, I'm going to upset my sons. I have 4 boys, and they're going to think it was when they were born, and it really wasn't. I mean, that was good, but that wasn't the most joyful moment. It actually was when my daughter-in-law, Veronica, was having one of her children, and my son, who had been at the previous births, had made a mistake at previous birth and got a little too close and sighted blood, passed out, and he couldn't be there. And she asked if I would be there for support with her, and that's not usual for the mother of sons. Usually, that's a mom and daughter thing. And she asked me to be there, and so I was there to support her and be with her. But I also got to cut the cord and to hold that brand new born baby and watch as his footprints got taken and his measurements got taken. And it was just a really unique perspective that I had never had before that time. And so that feeds into who I am, and that I am a beloved child of God who remembers where I came from and appreciates and lives into where I am, because I'm so excited to what God is doing, because He's not finished growing me up yet. I'm here on purpose for a purpose.
Here on purpose for a purpose. And I love that story
Hmm.
that you told about being in the birthing room because you have sons. And so you had an opportunity to do that, even though you have sons and not daughters, but now you have a daughter in love. And I can experience what you're saying through my God children because I was able to be in the room at her request when my God grandson Matthew was born. And I helped to clean him for his first bath and cut the cord and all those things. And that is special. And we will have a forever bond because of that, regardless of what he ever does. He's still my favorite person in the whole wide world. And I'm going to make that clip and send it to him when this recording is over because he needs to see that. He's going to be so embarrassed. Nevertheless, I resonate with you very
Look it over.
tremendously on that in terms of purpose and how special moments are joyful in our lives. So let's dump some of the other puzzle pieces out and get back to talking about you. And you've given our title today a grounded identity. Let's dump some of your pieces out that God has creatively put together and tell us about a time that you want to share, maybe a time or two, where you stepped outside of your box, you stepped outside of whatever and became your authentic self. I'm going to go backstage and let you just have it. Open mic.
Okay. Well, I love the title you have of being unboxed, because it really reminds me of that image, even of nesting boxes, like a box within a box within a box, because sometimes we have to have several layers taken off before we get to the core of who we are. And I mean, I've had unboxed moments over the years, like the divorce that led to being a single parent for a season, being called out of teaching in the classroom to teaching in the church, the tough decisions regarding toxic situations with those who struggle with addiction that I care deeply about. But the most profound unbox moment for me that really got to the core of who I am was at a spiritual retreat. We were doing an exercise with a retreat leader. There was about 5 of us there. And we were sitting in a semicircle, and there was a chair in front of us that was Jesus, represented Jesus's presence. And we were to confess or to share something that we had been holding on to that we need to let go of to give to God. And of course, being in the ministry, I had this. I knew I could handle this. I'd say it and it'd be no big deal. So I said, my confession and of some things that had happened in the past that had been buried deep. And then the next step came, and the retreat leader said, if you're brave enough, will you sit in Jesus' chair and tell yourself what Jesus would tell you about that? And I thought I had all this under control. And the minute I sat down, I knew Jesus would tell me I was forgiven. I knew Jesus would show me grace. I knew he would tell me I was loved. Yet at that moment, when those words came out of my mouth, it was like the understanding of those words went from my head into my heart. And it just opened me up in a way I didn't anticipate and really freed me. Because before then, I had let my past define me. I let other people define me. And the really courageous part was in God defining me first and foremost before anybody else. And in that moment, I realized other people need to hear this as well. And from there, I left that retreat and continued to grow in my walk and went to seminary to earn my doctorate, and knew that I was supposed to take my story and show how the Holy Spirit had led and guided me, and show others how they could do that with their story, because everybody's got a story. Everybody does. And it helped me in that moment, that unboxing moment, to embrace who I am and to have the courage to help others and empower them to embrace who they are created to be and who they are right where they are, not before they get all fixed up like they think they should, but just come as you are to before Christ, and he can use that when we just give ourselves fully like that.
That is absolutely so true. When we authentically give ourselves as we are, Christ does not want us to get ourselves right. That's what his job is. So to make that decision and to be in situations where we can become transparent, we become vulnerable and release and get delivered from heinous things sometimes. But sometimes there's simple things where we've been in boxes that we created for ourselves. And so
Yeah.
it may have been other imposed, it may have been self imposed, but yet you made that decision, thought you were in control. And then the Holy Spirit said, I got this. Anything else you
Yep.
want to add to that?
Just that whole process of that was a pivotal moment, but
Mm-hmm.
seems like there's constantly assumptions that and comparisons that people make about us in our lives that create these little box walls to start coming up, and we got to keep flattening that down and keep it wide open so we can see going forward, because too often we let other people put barriers in front of us that God never intended to be there.
That is absolutely wonderful. The way that you express the analogy of the unboxing, flattening the box. Are there any tips that you would like to share at this time that would help someone flatten the box when someone else is trying to put them in there?
I always have to go back to the one who made me knows me better than anybody else. And that's going back to what God says about me before I go to what society or culture says about me. And that's got to be the first place that I'm grounded.
I'm so glad you said that. The Holy Spirit knew that I was going for the title next, grounded identity, and that's where we are grounded. So go ahead and tell us why you chose that title.
Well, I chose that title because growing up, I grew up in the country. We didn't own our own property. We lived in a rented farmhouse, and um, surrounded by cornfields. And sometimes people get judged by where they grow up, for better or for worse. And it gets in your head that you think you're limited because of that. And that's not what God says. So by being in that environment, I got to see the different seasons that took place around me. I got to see when the fields were fallow and empty, but there was still growth going on underneath the surface. I got to see where seeds were planted, and they didn't spring up automatically, but they were planted with hope and with promise. And sometimes you had to turn over a lot of dirt to make that happen. I got to see little seedlings grow up into full grown plants in their time. And I got to see the harvest, which took everything back to where it begins to start again. And I was reminded that the things I saw were teaching me right there in front of me. And I'm not saying they taught me about agriculture as much as they told me about how God designed my life. That I go through seasons, that each one of us go through seasons, and we can be grounded in every season because God, who created this world we live in, has put reminders all around us that can ground us more than anything that we can create or think of. So that's kind of where I started with it, and that's kind of how it's come to fruition.
I'm all about that. There's a book that I wrote in 2023 that's called Blooming for Christ. And there's a comparison between the stages of growth of a Christian and the stages of growth of a plant. And so invite the audience to take a look at that when they get a chance. It's available on Amazon. But that's just so very, very true in terms of how the seeds do sprout, and God does that in our lives such that you had a chance to see and get close to God, get intimate with God, just in being a part of nature because of where you grew up and how you grew up. And so when you think about all of that, do you have any regrets as you look back on your whole life about anything? Any regrets?
Oh, yeah, the
You're
times that I
grounded.
would say,
We
uh,
know you're grounded, but are there any regrets?
yeah, but I mean, there's times where, I didn't think I could do it. When I was younger, I wrote a children's story, and by my early 20s, I threw it away because I didn't think it was good enough, because others didn't think it was good enough, and I let who I am be determined by somebody else. And a lot of times growing up, um, I would find myself struggling and to try to fit into this niche or fit into this definition or fit under this label. And to really kind of take that analogy, grow the fruit, you've got to
Mhm.
interact with something outside of yourself in order for fruit to grow. So different experiences in life, friends, my roommate in seminary, totally different background, totally different culture. We grew up differently, different ethnic backgrounds, and yet I learned so much from her, from Gina, that she spoke to me and told me, and I could ask her questions. The college I went to was not the one that a lot of my other friends went to, because I went to a historically black university, and I'm so glad I did. That I didn't know what it felt like to be one color person in a room full of 100 other people who had a different color. And until you live that, you don't have a clue, and
Okay.
you're not going through in life, and you're not seeing the beauty of all that God has created, and you're not learning about yourself. And sometimes they're hard truths, and that's a
Hmm.
good thing. And sometimes it shows how, we all have heartbreak, and we all, bleed red, and we all are going to go to dust, and these bodies aren't made to last. Um, Yet we are created to come together to bring life to one another. We can't just do it in isolation. We've got to cross what society has said is a boundary. We need to go across that in order to bring life to one another.
Yeah, a lot of times people say about reaching across the aisle or what have you, but
Yep.
God reaches all of us the same way,
Mm-hmm.
and we are the same to Him. We're the ones
Same.
that make the differences, and that is a sad shame. I'm so glad that you and I have come together despite what society might say, and we're having just a grand time being in cyberspace together. And I think that's just absolutely wonderful. I'm intrigued by the book that you didn't write, because there is a book that you did write. So talk to us
Mm-hmm.
about the whole idea of writing and publishing and the topic of the book. We'll share what that's all about as you speak.
Um, so the book that's coming out right now is called Groundwork: The Farm Parables and Cultivation of Faith. Because if you look at Jesus's parables, they're so many are based on the farm. And it's not just because it was an agrarian setting at the time, it's because that's where life happens. The food we eat every day comes not from the grocery store, it comes from a farm somewhere. Even if it's been processed, it starts at a farm of some kind. And that whole concept of the story of my life intersecting the Bible and what Jesus told in the parables, it wasn't just for my benefit. Those parables were meant to show us the importance of mercy. When we get stuck in the pig pens of our life, and to show mercy to one another, to show grace. That's a gift that you can't earn. To show acceptance of one another, of who we are and where we are. And all those parables were bringing these messages. And I was like, well, my story intersecting with a part of society, whether it be with people with disabilities, because I have children that have disabilities, that they have not let that hold them back. And I have seen, as a special education teacher, I have learned so much by not prejudging somebody and what they can and can't do. I've also seen where people have been held back because of their social situation. Maybe they've been exposed to a part of life that I didn't know. And Jesus's parables just seem to build not only awareness across social issues, but also our personal issue of growing our faith. If we just try to read the Bible, be good in our own little bubble, then we're denying what the truth is. We're supposed to live that out in the world. We don't have life to keep it for ourselves. We are to have life to give it to others and encourage others. And so that's where this book Groundwork comes in. And as a teacher, I put a little study guide in the back. I can actually have little videos on my website that help with that, because I always want to be teaching people, because I've learned myself.
Share with us where we can find the book and about your website. Give us the details about that.
Okay. I do have a blog. It's at all lowercase, Rebecca Collison.blog. And then my website is theRebeccaCollison.com. It's not an ego thing. It's the one that was available. The other one wasn't. And the book can be purchased there. The book can also be purchased through Amazon, and um, is available for that purpose as well.
That's wonderful. Are there other components of your ministry that you'd like to share with us about? Because we want to empower people in whatever way we can while we're here.
Well, I actually serve as a pastor in the Global Methodist Church, and I serve in my church. I have a focus on discipleship and teaching people and getting them to go beyond just it's it's good to memorize something, but you got to put it into it. You've got to put it on, the rubber to the road, as it's said. Plant those seeds, put them in the ground, keep nurturing, trust that God's timing is always perfect, and to keep walking with that flock as long as that's where God has me placed. So I keep doing that. And there is another book bubbling up, but it's not quite there yet. So we'll see where God takes that.
It's a beautiful thing when God starts bubbling in you. I tell you the truth. It's a great feeling. And so, is there any other information that you would like to share with us as we get ready to conclude this episode?
Is there any what?
Other
I didn't catch you.
information that you would like to share as we get ready to conclude this episode?
Information. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, actually, well, I my book was presented at the 2025 Asheville Christian Writers Conference, and for nonfiction, it won 3 awards. One for on religious faith, on Christian social issues, and on Christian personal growth. So it just felt like that was an affirmation that the message that I felt that the Spirit gave me to put out there, that I was being faithful, and that's a message that was going out.
Congratulations on all the accolades that the Lord has given to you. That is a wonderful thing that puts him forward as he has used you as his vessel. Now, let's get ready to close this thing out with words of wisdom that you can direct toward future generations, those yet unborn. Any words of wisdom that would keep them from being stuck in a box in the first place?
Probably the first thing being uh, don't believe lies and labels just because they are louder and larger. God's bigger than all of it. And to begin where you are, never stop learning or growing. Those would probably be the two, two key things.
Never stop learning, never stop growing. Continue to be grounded in your identity because God did not make a mistake when he created you. Reverend Dr. Rebecca L. Collison, it has been great having you here with us today. You are unboxed on purpose, and you have encouraged others to step outside and continue to live their lives despite things that have happened. And you even talked about that just briefly. But even though we have difficulties in life, you continue on because you have grounding in your faith. And so thank you again for being here with us today. Any closing words or anything else you may have, God may have put something on your heart that you haven't had a chance to say because I didn't ask the right question. So you've got an open mic to say whatever you like.
I'm just, I'm thankful for this opportunity. I'm just thankful that God's not done with me yet.
No,
and he's not done with you.
No, he's not. Throughout this episode, we have had a technical challenge because there is a slight delay or lag, and prayerfully that will be smooth by the time the recording goes forth. But anyway, if you would like to be a guest on Unboxed on Purpose, you can go to our website, favoredbythefatherministries.com, and schedule a time for us to talk about that. This podcast is designed with you in mind. So help us to thrive, continue to thrive in 2025. Leave your name, leave your email address, unboxed for the subject, and briefly describe why you would like to be on the show. And so join us every week for about 30 minutes or so. The next episode of Unboxed on Purpose may actually feature you. Restorative and refreshing conversations that shape our future as well as our right now. New episodes come out on Thursday, but once I put them on the YouTube channel, I don't take them down. You'll find them on the Favored by the Father Ministries channel, our Facebook page, LinkedIn, and most podcast platforms. The Holy Spirit is what and who leads us and advances us to lofty levels to immeasurable heights in the Lord, so that we can fulfill our purpose, so that we can indeed bloom wherever we are planted, so that we can grow our intimacy with the Lord as we ponder the different points that the Lord gives us. I want you to grow in grace, which is God's special favor, and remain favored by the Father. Thank you, and I hope to see you again next week.
Journey of growth like no other. Blooming for Christ. A captivating exploration of spirituality and the remarkable parallels between a plant's journey and our own. Transformative power of God's love. Blooming for Christ. Embrace your season of growth and let your faith bloom. Available now.